order. Introduce Scott Breyer, Select Board.
Not Morley, Select Board.
Dan Webster, Select Board.
Matt Maxwell, Town Administrator. Let's start the back.
Jeff White, town bookkeeper.
I'm in the front.
Yeah. Did you stand on the planning commission?
Derek Lund, civilian.
Jim LaPorte, 36 Conley Court.
Ethan Burton, resident.
Karen Keenan, resident.
Charlie Crono, President of Port Ambulance. Jeff Johansson, Newport Ambulance.
Omar Cat, Emergency Management Director, 911 address.
Carlene, go ahead.
Hi, Carlene Lenhart, property owner, calling in from Texas.
Thank you. We also got Brian McWalters. He's part of the state of Vermont buyout program. Okay, any changes or additions to the agenda this evening?
Yeah. If we can have, because this doesn't require as far as discussion, the certificate page for the grand list for no appeal or sit pending. Now that Casella is finalized, it should be signed for the grand list.
You guys okay with that?
Say it again.
It's the signature page for the grand list for the no appeal or suits pending, because we do not have any pending, so this should be signed now.
I have one thing. I think we should, under other business, select board should discuss about getting the credit card limit raised for purchases for, just purchases. I think it's at $2,500, and I know there's a compactor that we want to buy, and I think it's off eBay, and we need to be able to charge the credit card, and it's at $3,000 with that. So we should discuss whether we want to raise the credit card limit to $5,000 or $10,000. I think it should be a $10,000 limit, probably.
Great. Public comment?
Question,
Go.
are they lining the roads that were just paved, like the Albert Road,
Not till spring.
not till spring?
They recommend not doing it this time of year
Oh,
because
really?
of the stag.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Just when it's dark and rainy, you can't
I
see
know.
nothing.
Yeah, I know another resident had called.
We called about that, and they said, if you want to waste your money, go ahead.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll be doing it again in the spring.
We've done that. We wasted
Yeah.
20 grand.
Wasted 20 grand.
Yeah.
So, no. Okay, that brings us to emergency services. This is ambulance services tonight. We had Orleans ambulance in here at our last meeting. Scott Morley and I met with Charlie and Jeff over at their office about a month ago to discuss what we were going to do with our ambulance service here in town, and now they are here tonight, and the floor is yours, gentlemen.
Well. I'm not sure.
You want to come sit up here, or you want to talk?
I'm usually loud enough. I'm not sure where you want us to head with this. One thing that Jeff did, I'm gonna have Jeff do a lot of the talking. You gave us a map last time on where to split it up, if it was gonna be split up. And when Jeff went out, put all the calls in to those areas, which simply is fairly easy to do. 2/3 of those calls would still be in the area that we would be covering. So our cost difference, we would still bill at 2/3 because of the call volume. So we'd still be picking up 2/3 of the calls. So you're looking at are you looking at a cost or a discussion about the feasibility or reasons why you should or should not do it. Or all of the above, what do you, I mean, what is our discussion? Because we've had all that discussion with you guys. And Scott came to a meeting.
Couple weeks ago with Matt.
With Matt also. So-
Yeah.
So,
I was fired, that's next, we're doing that next week, next month, or 2 weeks.
so basically, I think we told you, we didn't feel you were comparing apples to apples when you're comparing Orleans to Newport. For a few reasons, we have a paramedic service. So, if you split the town up 2/3, 1/3 by the mileage thing on the call volume, you're gonna have a third of the town that if somebody's having, if it's a broken leg, it's not a big deal, but if it's a heart attack, it could be. So I feel you'd be offering a third of your area. A lesser professional service than you have the rest of the town. So the question at that point is, if that call that comes in as a heart attack, and you need the paramedic service, which happens fair enough. I mean, I think you had a number there that was 25, our number was 27. But 27 out of 90 calls or whatever is 30% of the time you need a paramedic.
So I did a little bit of comparison. So, you guys wanted, we'll use this building right here. Mileage wise, it is about 1 mile. I think Bill had the exact thing. It was within a minute or so difference from Orleans over Newport. The advantage is we're coming in at a paramedic level service. Newport ambulance, we have 10 trucks. We're all stocked at the paramedic level. We will have, if we don't have a paramedic on, we'll have an AMT on, which is the same thing as Orleans. We own 4 Stryker Lucas CPR devices. So if you have a cardiac arrest, this is the machine that does CPR. Every one of our trucks have a Baxter IV pump. We have Zoll Z ventilators, which is top of line we bought with COVID money. Newport owns 2 out of the 6 in the state of Vermont. It's called a high flow nasal cannula system. It's for pediatric RSV patients. So if your infant has RSV and is having a hard time breathing, we have that portable machine. We received that from the state of Vermont during COVID. They only gave out 6 of them. They're super, super expensive, but we received 2 of them, one for the Newport division, one for Johnson division. So, we have some high-end equipment. We have 6 paramedics on staff in Newport, 11 total in the company. We just hired a critical care paramedic flight nurse that works for Dart. That's going to be, also works for us. With those paramedics, if you have someone actively seizing, our medics can stop it. If you're having a rapid heart rate, which they call SVT, heart rate of 160, 200, your heart can only beat like that for so long before it goes into cardiac arrest. As a paramedic, I can give medications and stop that, or, cardioversion with electricity. Someone having severe difficulty breathing, we have medications that we can start with those IV pumps to, just help that out, before they get to the hospital and end up intubated or, as that heart attack, as a paramedic, I can read that heart attack. I can call the hospital. I can transmit to the hospital, say, hey, this person's having a heart attack. We can get Dart in the air, but only a paramedic can read a 12 lead. There's a lot of schooling that goes with a paramedic, but that's one of the costs that, we do.
So with Orleans not having a paramedic, what can they do? I mean, they
So, it's,
pick people up.
they're
and-
AMTs, so they can start IVs, they can give fluid, they can do some medication, diabetics, epinephrine, there is quite a bit they can do. I'm not saying that, they can't do anything.
Yeah.
They've come a long ways. I just think that, and I understand Nabowski Road and the River Road and stuff like that, that's so close. But when you're coming to within 1 mile difference to the village of Coventry, if you really should look at apples to apples.
The biggest thing is like today, there was a paramedic that they called out. They have to go to the scene. So they might get there 2 minutes before us, it depends where it is. But if they assess that they need a paramedic, then they have to call us up. And if the assessment is you need a paramedic, then that person's in critical condition. So if that's happening a third of the time. That's why I said, a third of the town is not gonna have the same people responding in a critical situation as the rest. If it's broken leg, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You know,
So what are you saying, you don't have enough paramedics?
huh?
You don't have enough paramedics, you need more?
No, we are a paramedic.
We are paramedic, Orleans is not.
So the discussion is on means changing the.
Yeah.
Company covering part of that. I guess.
I don't know if we were trying to really cut costs, it just seemed funny to drive to Orleans, past the
We don't-
Orleans,
I
and
don't
then
know, would that ever happen?
if they're coming to like Webster Road or.
No, we go down the airport.
Yeah.
It's all paved.
Yeah, so they're on the Orleans Barton Road is where their station is by the pizza place. So,
Oh, by Village Pizza?
yeah, that's where the Orleans station is. And then we're in Newport, so, I mean, we never cross Orleans station.
We'd come down the airport.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not arguing that, Airport Road and Nabowski Road is so much closer for Orleans. So that, I mean, that's how it was years ago. My biggest push is like this village right here. If you map it, it's 1 mile closer for Orleans. So you're getting a paramedic service. I mean, we employ 75 people. If someone calls out, I have a big pool to pull through. We have 10 ambulances. If one needs to go in for tire change, I'm not short an ambulance. We just pull another ambulance. I like to pride myself that we were able to staff that CO alarm at the school. We were able to pull 4 ambulances there. We did pull an Orleans ambulance to Newport to help, but we staffed that ambulance. I pulled an ambulance from Johnson because we're there. I pulled 2 down. So within like 20 minutes, I had 3 ambulances sitting plus 4 that were sitting right there.
Yeah.
That's the advantage is we're a larger regional service. We're able to pull resources.
So I guess our point being, I mean, it's entirely up to you what you guys do. But I just want you to be aware that there is a difference. You're not comparing. You're not comparing apples to apples. And especially the school is in the district we would not be primary, and so is the nursing. Those are probably 2 of the most critical places you have to. So those would be. So I'm not sure that just how close you are to the station is what should be the consideration.
Yeah.
But we do have figures. We went back and gave figures both ways if you want those. It's not, I mean, it's not a lot of money difference with us compared to where we are. It's just, we're just trying to point out that you're not really, it's not compared.
So where did we get, so this is new to me.
Oh, this study?
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm seeing it the first time here. I just
so this was,
kind of read through most of it, but
so my daughter's in medical school and she wanted to do, well, she heard me talking about this a little bit and gathering some information, and she wanted to gather some information and put this little scope presentation together for us, so we know, like, there's just a lot of things, we don't know. Originally, I was thinking that, it makes sense for You know, the faster an ambulance, you know, gets to a call, the better it is, but at first glance, I don't know there's any difference about the crew that's in the ambulance and what they can do. I don't know that. And I don't think the average person at home who's calling 911, they don't know who or what's getting sent to their house. They just know they need an ambulance.
Right.
You know,
I thought they all would be like, have paramedics, I did.
You all have the same credentials.
right, so it's news to me. I didn't realize that. So now looking at the information and thinking about it, it's like, you know, does it make sense to have an ambulance, you wait 15 minutes, the ambulance shows up and then the ambulance is sitting there, then they gotta say, oh, we gotta call the other ambulances. Or should we have just waited 17 minutes and had the right crew there the first time? You know, those are things that I think need to be considered when making a choice about time to get to a person's home. So I was glad to get this extra information. I'm glad you guys are here presenting this to us because it's information I didn't know.
And the only time that makes a difference is when it's critical, but that's
when it matters the most.
Yeah.
That's the most important time not able.
The time when you need is,
Have you guys seen this?
I just.
Well, we reviewed it 5 minutes ago,
Okay,
so we haven't seen it prior.
yeah, so. What was I looking at here? It's got things to consider. Optimizing the quality of the response. It says Orleans does not have a paramedic and calls Newport for a paramedic when needed. How large of an issue is this? Orleans service calls for a paramedic 25 times in 2023 out of 1,900 calls. That's an estimate of 1.3% of the time.
So those 1,900 calls is not an accurate number, because a majority of those are transports. So I'd like to see what the 911 numbers are for Orleans. Orleans sends a truck to UVM on a daily basis, because they are now doing all the transfers out of UVM. That's how they're supplementing their costs, which is great for their taxpayers. But if 900 of those are transfers, that's a skewed 1.3%.
How many calls a year do you guys do?
We will do over 5,000 in the company. In Coventry, it was 71. It's 100 average.
So
It's a running average of 100.
That 1,900 number is not in Coventry.
No, there's only 70, last year there was 71
Oh,
calls, 71 calls in Coventry.
Yeah, so we're at 71 as of, well, when we pulled these numbers, we were at 71. Newport PD has a running average of 100 calls over the last 4 years for Coventry.
Well, which my point, so year to date, that says 25, since she talked to Jeff, we've done 2 more. So it's 27 of the 100 calls, and we're not done the year yet. So that's why I said, probably pretty close to a third of your calls require paramedic.
How much, what was that?
About a third of your calls,
So far, 27 out of 100 have needed a paramedic
27 out of 70.
for 71.
No, those 25, those are the ones in Orleans. So we can't, and the 71 in Newport, I don't have access to pull those numbers up, literally going through every call and seeing what we did on every single call. Because we did those 71, so was there a paramedic on? Did they treat with a paramedic, or was it just because the paramedic went to that call?
Right.
So I can't, I mean, I could do it if you asked me to. I can literally go through every 100 call and see what every single one was done.
So the reason we got to this at all, right, in the beginning was because we started with fire.
Sure.
Town is a split coverage with Orleans and Newport Fire based on response time and safety. That's how we developed our town, because we don't have our own fire department. Ambulance is sort of sister thinking, right? But for whatever reasons, we've not opted, at least in recent times, to the split coverage of the ambulance. And so basic question, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we looking at response time with a quality unit there a lot closer to some of us that live on that side of town? That's the basic questions that started to get answered. So, we've now done that, I guess. We've met with them, we've met with you, we're here. This is new. It probably has to be digested by me anyway.
When you're looking at, so right now the coverage map is not all the way down into here. It's what Orleans fire covers was what Orleans ambulance used to cover before that whole change. Also, which is the southern corner that comes down from Cleveland Road. If you just think about roads that come up to Messier Farm Road off of River Road, and then Webster and Airport Road is where the line goes. So Orleans Fire, and at that point in time, Orleans ambulance was covering the southern end of the River Road and Airport, Webster, and Cleveland Road. That's things changed with Newport, with that change, they're covering all of it, but fire's still in that section. This is what you're talking about, is that going back to that same line, or are you looking at changing the line too?
We asked the basic question initially on response time. Who can get to where the fastest?
So looking at.
And so that was the map.
So that map that was given, I went back through, because it didn't sound right to me. I took the spots, because you were talking about just coming down Coventry Station Road, and that's a line. What was thought of with that map?
That's what the Orleans folks did
That's
for
what they
us.
did. So I went and looked at it, and it is between a mile, a half a mile, and a mile difference. I took 3 spots. Was River Road and Coventry Station, Airport and Coventry Station, and then here. And all 3 of them for Newport Fire Department and the ambulance was within half a mile to a mile difference in distance. I believe they put on their map, it was 2 to 3 miles. So I just wanted to make sure that was out there, is not being,
Wasn't their route down the interstate though?
they would have been on the interstate.
But no,
So-
didn't they have the Newport ambulance coming up the interstate to get to?
I don't know where EJ came up with the numbers, so I'm just putting out, I'm not gonna, my gut.
So which one's closer?
Depending on which one you get. So, here,
Don't have enough maps from last time.
So the station road is closer to which bay?
so ambulance, the station road. Station for Newport 6.9 and 6.4 for Orleans. The village is 7.4 for Newport, 5.8 for Orleans. Wait, yes. And then River Road and Station is 7.8 for Newport, 6.6 for Orleans.
So it's Orleans is
That-
closer.
Yes, that one
On
is,
all of them.
yeah.
Oh.
Fire's a little
That's
bit,
cool.
fire's a little bit different. But you gotta look at it, like they're saying.
No,
is a
fire's
half-
not different. It's just the distances is what we're talking.
Yeah, the
about.
distance, that's what I mean, fire distances are a little different. Why? Because they're a little further
Okay,
away.
wait a minute. Don't.
I'm not going down the fire, I don't wanna go down the fire route, but,
We're talking about,
so here's where I'm going, is, it's what it, here. You've got the village. 7.4 versus 5.8, that's a mile and a half.
you're contesting something.
No, I'm not, hang on, stop. 6.4 and 6.9, you've got a half a mile there. So what I'm contesting is a half a mile is 30 seconds.
That's fine. The question is which is closer.
I just told you. So yes, Orleans is close,
Orleans is
but then you
closer.
also got.
Doesn't mean that that's our decision. It means that's the answer to that question.
Yes, that's the answer to that question, sorry.
Thank
That
you.
is the answer to that question, but I was going with, you can't just look at the distance.
And we wouldn't do that.
No,
That's not what we're here to do.
But I was also trying to figure out from my perspective on the address coordinator, because I have to do the line, is making sure you are aware of where that current line is. And that didn't come down Coventry Station like has been talked in previous, which I didn't know if that was aware of.
I just, when we met, and Jeff and I, and you had said something similar to what he said. Oh, you're going right by our station. I didn't catch it at first, and then afterwards, I'm talking to Jeff. I said, when the hell would we ever do that?
Yeah.
I said, never. And I said, so what was that all about? And I wasn't sure, unless they think that if we're going to Webster Road.
Well, I'm just
come
thinking
down
of,
the interstate, Common to airport. Hey,
I'm just thinking of my grandmother. I thought the ambulance came up the hill. I just assumed it was Orleans and,
On Webster Road or?
yeah.
So if we go to Webster Road, we're taking the airport road, which is out paid. So there's the other thing, mileage wise.
But that's not what he just said.
I thought they
That's not
came
what
up the
you
hill.
just said.
Right, well, that's what I'm trying to explain. We go down the airport road. To Webster Road. So if we're going to Webster Road, we're gonna go down the airport road, go through the four corners.
But that's not what he just said.
Oh, I'm sorry. Lost.
At my grandmother's house on Webster Road, if they come up the hill, they came from Orleans.
Oh, yes.
So-
Okay.
And that was Newport ambulance.
So they didn't go from Orleans. What they did is probably go down the river road and not.
And the same thing happened to my parent who lives on the river road, which is it took them. Nobody could understand why so long. And when they arrived, they came from the Orleans way. And so, whatever, and an issue, occasional issue is an occasional issue, but you know. That wouldn't happen down there. It's something we gotta consider. We gotta think about that. It's just closer there and they're not
I
gonna
mean,
be going.
mistakes will be made by
Absolutely,
Orleans too. I was
absolutely.
on an Orleans call and they were
And-
in Irisburg and they went for Rigsby Road.
Yeah.
And they went all the way to Lowell.
I didn't bring that up. I'm just saying, there are
Yeah,
examples.
that
So
happens
it's
all
like,
the time.
that's why it came up.
I'm sorry.
To answer your question,
I
that's why
wasn't
it came up.
picturing where,
But I'm thinking,
yeah,
where does,
So whether it's a mistake or whether it's a systemic issue, we don't know that. We just know that we have a couple of examples of this is how it happened. And so it begs the question from us, why does that happen? If it's an error, who cares? We try to make it better. If it's a system issue, then I would beg you guys to make it better,
absolutely.
you know? Well.
so are you interested in numbers? Because you did that.
Shoot.
Mine are all, because we had to go back to the 4 other budgets. Because our budgets were all done, so the timing of this was not real convenient for us. We had completed our budgets and we were like, and we're all set, and then you throw this, shit, so we have another meeting.
Yeah.
So we have 2 different budgets for everybody for Newport Town, Coventry and Derby. That's one. So Coventry has the lowest per cap. Is in the group with the lowest per cap because we go by call volume. And Coventry was an original Newport ambulance service town. So was Newport Town and Newport City, and then Derby came in. 2 years later, but because you're in a group with a bigger call volume, our income's better. So your cost per cap is less than like if you were in Troy or Morgan. So we have 4 different divisions, so you're in. Our cap, if everything remained the same, would be at $38.14 per capita. $38.14, which comes up to $41,954. And then you have, because they bill us dispatch for Coventry, and they do it on a all volume running average, we'd be paying it all this year. And even if you went with Orleans, so you wouldn't, they wouldn't be charging you for dispatch. We would be charging you for all the dispatch, and then that would switch around if E911 got changed and all that. I don't know if we ever explained what we did with you. What goes on, so dispatch is $4,470. So the total, 46,420. If we go to the new mat, the price for Coventry is 29,465. Dispatch would be the same at 4470 for this year. Total is 33,925. Difference is 12,480. And the per cap at that point would be 39.90, because that's how, you know, we're gonna take our cost and split it into the population. That all,
That's good.
Do we have Orleans numbers?
They gave us like numbers like that. Broken out like that.
I believe they did.
Ever have.
There was two meetings ago.
So you had them broken down for.
Yeah, they had one number for the whole town, like, just same thing, because that's what we had asked for, one for the whole, a number for the whole town and a number for the mileage. Right, if we don't have it now, we'll have to get that.
yeah, and they did figure dispatch in there, I'm guessing, because they're not getting billed. They would be next year. Right? That's why I split it out. We split our dispatches per call. Because that's how Newport charges us, because we have Newport do the dispatch. Which is 100 times better than the state doing the dispatch.
Yeah.
So the state, we could get them to do it for free, but.
No, yeah.
Not anymore. Well, I thought that Glover said they were.
Yeah.
But anyways, we didn't want to anyways, because. It was not working real good when they were doing it, so sending. Somebody to a road in Derby instead of one. Call.
So I think what we
Sure,
should do
I'm
is, table our decision, get some, have Matt get us some more numbers, some more leads, and then we can,
Yeah, they gave them to us.
we need to have a quick special meeting to make a decision.
Yeah, because we're trying to give
Yeah, the rest of the towns wanting.
all the towns want numbers. That's why I said timing is horrendous. So we have a meeting at Newport City tonight to give them numbers. And our numbers are gonna be, depending on what you guys decided. This or that, but I mean, we can give them two different budget numbers, but. But, so they're waiting for numbers too, because they're all getting their budgets together.
So
So the timing was.
figure that out tomorrow. And then, let us read this a couple different times, and then we'll have to do it, go under special.
We do a special meeting and we can maybe warn a special meeting tomorrow, so we can have one this week, make them get this done this week.
But all right,
Think about
I think we can do it, just make the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just give, the only one we're scheduled is
Newport City.
Newport City, and that's tonight.
Both.
So we'll just give them both figures.
All right,
Okay.
I mean, we didn't do one. Assuming Orleans is gonna do the whole town. Because that's not something we have discussed. Period, so, I don't have budget figures for that. But I would assume that. Time and
Yeah.
Bill left
Response.
we have people under 2 miles from us. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right, no, and we appreciate what you do, we're not, it's nothing about the service, it was started out with.
no, I totally understand it, but that's why we've pushed that you're not comparing apples to apples, because most people don't realize.
They don't
An
know,
ambulance is an
they
ambulance,
call 911, they think they're gonna get
it's not,
the ambulance.
it's not,
You know,
that is not the
I've
case.
seen on TV, but it's not that way.
But you know, and that's why we picked up,
The skill levels is exactly like if you go to the hospital, You know, you have an LNA, you have an RN, you have a nurse practitioner, you have a PA, you have a doctor, I mean.
Yeah.
But there's a reason that we picked up Morgan, Holland, Derby, West Charleston, East Charleston, Brighton, Troy, Lowell, North Troy, Westfield, Lowell. In the last 5 years, we picked all these towns up.
You guys have enough staff for this,
So we employ 75.
Yeah.
And guys, yes, I don't need to cut anybody off, but we got a lot to do tonight and we're gonna.
Yeah, thanks
Thanks a
for
lot,
coming.
guys.
We'll reach out to you before the end of the week.
Okay,
Thank you.
We'll give you our.
if you have questions.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
All right, thanks. Thanks for coming in, Jeff. Thanks, Charlie. Yeah.
All right, next up, we got the floodplain buyouts. Brian, can you hear me?
I can indeed. Am I coming through okay?
You are. I got
Okay, great.
Carlene here and go ahead, so say your names, we can hear you.
James.
James,
Derek Leonard.
Derek, and I thought Dale Bennett was gonna be here, but he's not. So we're at the point at these buyouts, I believe you guys are all interested in pursuing the buyout, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think as far as I know, Brian, and talking with Phil, the next step would be for the select board to agree to pursue the grant on these people's behalves, right?
That is correct. Yep. Voluntary program both for property owners in the town, and if the town's ready to move forward, I can work with you and Phil and getting the forms to the right people and starting to pull that application together.
Guys, what do you?
How much information are you aware of with these? I know I sent this out a while back with Storm, but I don't know what you have been given since then.
Do you have a 2-minute summary?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you guys
That's what I
are
need.
aware of what's to become of your property, should you?
Yeah, but we just don't know the time.
Well, I think Brian can help you with the time frame.
See, the time frame and how long we have to make a decision and how long, if we do agree to the buyout, do we have, before we have to get off the property.
Okay.
How long do we have to find another,
Yeah.
another property before they want to tear our house down, so.
Yep. And I can,
That's gonna make the decision whether I do it or not, whether on the time frame. If you want me out after the buyout in 30 days, I can't do it. I can't find another place to live in 30 days. I need at least a year after the buyout. Okay, if you're gonna approve on a buyout, you gotta give me a year, find another place to live. Because of the market, the way it is right now, it's not for the buyer, it's for the seller. So that all, that's what takes precedence over this is time. Okay, if I gotta be out in 30 to 60 days, I can't do it. I don't care what they offer, I just can't find a place. Can't find a place in 60 days, people can't find a place in a year right now.
Also, how long is it gonna take you to push a price to us?
Right.
So I'll probably let Brian answer most of that. Do you want to do that? Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
yeah, happy to give a bit of an idea of the timeline. So some of it is outside of our control, especially for any applications that are going to FEMA. We administer funding both from FEMA and from our state program, and I can get into some of those differences as we go along. But what we're doing most of the figuring out which one goes where. That's not on the town or the property owners to figure out. But for those that go to FEMA, the application itself takes anywhere from 6 months to a year to be processed before we hear from FEMA if it gets an award. And then once we do hear that we have an award, then there's a few months of actually implementing the grant before we even get to closing. And so the grant would be used to hire an appraiser, to do a full market appraisal of the property, to do a title search, to do closing document development, and then schedule a closing date. And so that's another couple months on top of the time it takes for the application to actually be processed. There is once the property is closed, there is a 90-day time limit for FEMA to have demoed all of the structures on that property to turn it into open green space. There's a little wiggle room to seek extensions on that, but that is the general time frame from closing to acquisition. And so I understand that obviously I think everyone's aware of kind of the state of the housing market, and I know that that can affect some people's decisions, and we're doing what we can to provide clarity where we can. But that FEMA process, like I said, out of our hands a bit. That timing on that can vary somewhat, but hopefully that helps give you a better idea.
6 months to a year, yeah. That's a great help. That's a good thing, you had plus 90 days on top of that. That's another 3 months, so. That's plenty enough time, yeah.
So we're looking at a year and a half?
Probably totally.
Yes, for the time it takes to kind of have it the grant implemented and have the bought out parcel be open green space, I'd say that is generally the time frame.
And
Things
that can
actually
be,
move a bit quicker under our state program, which is for properties that would fall through the cracks with FEMA, and so part of it would depend on that. But our state program, we also have a bit more flexibility with things like timing. So that is to say, as we get details on which properties are a better fit for which program, we would be communicating that to the town. Communicating which are the relevant timelines and making sure the property owners have that information as well. I'll also know that this process, property owners are free to withdraw from it at any time prior to closing. And so we have seen property owners who, while an application is in process, they withdraw either because, they have decided elsewhere, or they've listed the home and they've gotten an offer and they want to move on it now. They can withdraw with no consequences. We've even had sometimes, the grant is awarded, we hire an appraiser, he does the full market appraisal, and property owners just decide that the price isn't right for them at that time, and they're free to withdraw at that point as well. So up until closing, the property owner has the option to withdraw, choosing to go forward with the buyout, working with the town to put in an application for the buyout does not commit them to selling.
Does it matter if you've been turned down by FEMA already for help with your own home already?
Nope.
Okay.
Separate program. Obviously, I think we're all a little FEMA'd out right now with the July flooding, but FEMA's work in responding to the July flooding and that broader disaster is separate from the work of their hazard mitigation work,
Okay.
which is what our team administers. And so obviously there's some intersection with how many homes have been impacted by the flooding, but being turned down for individual assistance or, a flood insurance claim or anything like that doesn't matter. What we're talking about is there flood risk we can demonstrate either through a FEMA flood map, a Department of Environmental Conservation river corridor map, or other indicators that there's flood risk, not necessarily recent flood damage or anything like that.
Carlene, you getting all that? You got any questions?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I have a long list of questions. I have read the Hazard Mitigation Assistance Guide, all 620 some odd pages of it, and the addendum is not an easy read. More of my questions, though, are directed towards how is the town going to manage it and what will the process be? Because in full understanding that cooperative communication between the town and the participants in the program will be so important. And like Brian talked about, this is not going to happen in a couple of months. This could, be up to, what I understand, maybe 36 months in some situations. But I do have a lot of questions. Some of them are just more of, will each property be considered a project by the state and FEMA, or collectively the town will have, because I understand there may be 8 or 9 or maybe even 10 other properties that are interested in this opportunity. So how will that be administered? Each each address, each place being a separate project or one large project. So some of those questions obviously won't be answered until the town and the state and the federal government know exactly who's participating, the conditions of the properties, how much demolition is gonna be required and things like that. But I do know this is gonna be a long road. I know that our address is definitely, we're decided we're gonna go ahead if the state and the federal government agrees. We want to demolish the property and go forward. Ours is a little bit different. There's 4 owners in that one address, and 2 live in Vermont, 2 live in Texas. So that's why I say the cooperative communication will be a little bit more difficult for us because we are all spread out in different places. But I also will say that living where I live in Texas, our property here is a repetitive loss under FEMA designation because we've had so many hurricanes and we've had so much loss to our property here. And I just want to put it out in the room, every time we've had to work with FEMA on recovery and that, they've been great to work with. They've been fast, their representatives have been cooperative and easy to work with. So this probably seems like an enormous project, but someone who's been through it 4 times since we've lived here, I can say that working with both the state of Texas, but mostly with FEMA, it's been a very good process and has worked out well. So I will have a lot more questions, but mostly for the town. How is the town going to manage this? Because it will be massive for any individual at the town level. Will you be hiring consultants? Will there be legal representation? Just a bunch of stuff like that. But we've already done the application. Brian, I've gotten an email from you. And we've exchanged a couple of emails, but for 89 Main Street, we're set. We want to go forward with the process in whatever way that happens.
Thank you, Carlene. Gentlemen, anything to add, or you heard all you need to hear? Or?
So the buyout process is down, is buying the property. It's 100% either state funds or federal funds. So no out of pocket from the town. Is it reimbursement, Brian? No, some of it's reimbursement, but then the purchase price, there's ways around working on that.
That's correct. Yeah, most of the grant work is reimbursement. So the town, hot contracts to do an appraisal, incurs that expense, submits it to Vermont Emergency Management, gets processed and reimbursed under the grant. The exception is for actually purchasing the property that VM cuts a check for up front, so that the town doesn't have to carry that any amount of time. I'll also note, I believe I mentioned this to Matt and or Phil. We are currently looking at basically piloting a new approach to doing these buyouts to try to ease that burden on towns, where essentially VEM, Vermont Emergency Management, could serve as the implementing party for a lot of it and maybe create some economies of scale, because obviously these conversations are going on across the state following the summer flooding. And so we're working to try to set that up and give towns the option of doing that. And I will continue to keep Matt and everyone updated on that as we go along. But in that case, there wouldn't even be that process. The town would still be the ones agreeing to take possession of the property once it's bought out, but we would be doing the legwork of hiring the appraiser and contracting for the demolition work. And so we're hopeful we can offer that to our towns, because we know a lot of them are stretched pretty thin right now following the summer.
It's green space and state space on this in our ownership. For the property owners, the appraisal is appraised value day prior to the event.
So it's the test value?
It's assessed, it's the assessed value for purchasing is the day prior to the.
But assessed value.
Yes.
Appraised value.
It'll be a appraiser using industry standards will come in and do an appraisal. So we use the tax assessed value for budgeting purposes plus 30%, because we know that those tax assessed values, a lot of them have gone up significantly. And that's what we use for budgeting purposes. But ultimately, the basis for, or the purchase offer for any buyout will be that full market appraisal. And as mentioned, that could either be current market or relevant to a lot of people following the July flooding. That could be a pre-event value where the appraiser would basically be instructed to look at the best guess value of the home on July 8th before any of this flooding started.
I just think it would be really hard to backtrack, even now, to go back and look at what that appraised value is, especially given the volatility of the market right now.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure what that process is. Obviously, the appraisal industry has their own kind of way of doing things, but I certainly, I certainly have some questions about that as well. But they do have that option of doing that because presumably that will still go a lot farther to helping property owners become whole again, rather than having to take a current market value that takes into account all the damage they suffered recently.
So during this buyout process, how long, if another flood occurs, how does that affect it? If it does happen, because with global warming, this flood could happen. And that's probably why you're having a buyout, knocking these houses down, because who wants to keep paying for flood insurance around here for the rest of their lives to protect their home, which your flood insurance doesn't cover a quarter of the cost of what the damages were on the house. So, as soon as another flood could happen next week, so does that affect what this appraisal is gonna happen to your house? If it gets flooded again, how are you gonna appraise this house again? He comes now and appraises it for what it was worth before the flood. How do you know what it was worth before the flood if you didn't see it then? If you didn't see the damage that occurred to the house? Okay, and take that into account, you know what I mean? When we moved here from Massachusetts, where, we knew we were in a flood thing, but we paid cash for the house. So we didn't get flood insurance till we took out a loan, and they told us 3 months after we got the loan that we needed flood insurance. Keep that money, so thank God we did get it, and it still didn't pay where all the damages were assessed at. And then FEMA declined us because we had flood insurance that didn't cover all the costs. So I was wondering if FEMA didn't kick in something. You know what I mean? $58,000, they give you 30. And so FEMA says, no, they gave you 30, that's enough. Well, it's not enough. Who tells you what's enough and what's not? You know what I mean? If you come in and look at someone's house, this is the damage that's done, but I can't afford to fix that at the money you're giving me. I'd have to be out of the house for all that, whatever needed to be fixed. I would have had to move out, move somewhere else. That's gonna cost more money. So, I just wanna know if this appraisal is gonna be worth what the house was worth before the flood. And how's he gonna know that?
Yeah. And, I think the process entails trying to use a variety of kind of pieces of evidence as to the, what shape the home was in prior to that, if there had been any recent, upgrades to appliances or anything like that, that can be documented and submitted to the appraiser. I think all that goes into it, as well as any evidence that damage occurred as a result of the flood and so therefore was not there, prior to it, all goes into it. But again, I can't say for sure. It's beyond my expertise to say exactly how that's done.
Further history on this, do you have any idea if people get fair market value at the time? Are people happy? Or people been holding on this?
Yeah, typically people go through with the process. We're in a bit of a new situation, at least I am, having not been here for another big event, where normally we're just doing a current market valuation because we're not dealing with the aftermath of a huge flood and a lot of homes basically needing the pre-event valuation. And so typically in the time I've been here prior to this summer, we've been doing current market valuations, which are a lot simpler in a way. And I know that generally property owners have been satisfied with those. Again, it's, it's the full market valuation. It's not the tax assessed. It takes into account the, if prices have been going up as they have in a lot of Vermont, the full market valuation will take that into account. So my understanding is generally property owners are happy with the valuations.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question. I know there are some people interested in the buyout that are not present. Who is the go-to person? Is it you, Phil? Is it Brian? Matt?
Both of us, me or Phil,
Okay.
me and Phil.
Either or.
And is there a deadline?
Brian,
It's way in the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
so if
Nothing
they aren't,
anybody needs to worry about, right?
if they aren't here at this meeting tonight, we can still put them in under it's just getting the select
So,
board to
is
say
there
yes
a
to go ahead
deadline?
and move forward with whoever's interested, right?
Is that just to me?
Yeah,
Yeah, and all the property owners that are interested, part of the forms that are disseminated to property owners is a statement of voluntary participation signed by both the town's authorized agent and the property owner. And so, obviously it'll be documented that they are indeed on board. And so their presence here is not strictly necessary to move forward at this point and start getting forms out.
Is there a time limit on that one? Is there a time limit on that? I mean, whether they want to pursue it or not, I mean, is it a year, or is it a couple months, or?
For these guys, you mean?
Yeah,
Well, I think the sooner.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Brian, do you know the answer to that question?
A time limit for property owners who are trying to decide whether or not to pursue a buyout. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So our hazard mitigation funding, its availability depends on a number of things, like if there's a recent disaster that made funding available. It doesn't need to be tied to a specific event. Again, it's about forward-looking flood risk. And so there are opportunities to pursue a buyout at later points, but to get that pre-event valuation that we were talking about, it needs to be under the round in which the damage occurred, so the July flooding. And as was mentioned, that's a ways off. It will be FEMA's deadline for that will be a year following the date the disaster's declaration, which was mid-July. Our state deadline will be a couple months before that, which would put us, late spring. But we also anticipate, because of the size of this disaster, the size of the funding round we're going to get because of it, we anticipate requesting and in all likelihood getting a couple of extensions as well that could push that another 3 to 6 months. And so, as mentioned, we haven't set a deadline yet. And when we do that, we'll be sure to communicate that with all the towns and with everyone I've been speaking with. But that would be, when that's set, that's the deadline to be able to do that pre-event valuation if the property owner is interested in doing that.
very good, thank you.
Bear with me on this question, Brian.
Yep.
If property owners submit an application now, people that are in the room or close to the issue at the moment, and then 6, 8, 9 months from now, other property owners decide they want to jump on, are those cases all going to be identified individually and actions accordingly, or is the town all going to be moving as one?
Yep, and that I think goes a bit to one of Carlene's questions as well. And the short answer is there's some flexibility on doing that. In general, grouping them into as few applications as possible is helpful from an organizational standpoint. At the same time, a application that has multiple properties in it Basically, if one property is found, you know, FEMA ineligible for a buyout for whatever reason or something like that, it wouldn't tank the entire application. It would just require us to modify the scope of it and proceed with the other ones. In the scenario you mentioned, it would be submitting a subsequent application. So if the town had a group of property owners ready to move, you know, in the near term, and we essentially got those forms out, collected them, made sure we had all our T's crossed and I's dotted, we could submit those under an application, and then if more property owners and the town were interested in a separate set later, we could then do a separate application for those.
Okay, so it sounds like it's by application, not by individual.
Right. Yeah. We generally will apply. We've done some of the first ones we've done under this round. You know, we had sometimes 4 properties in one application, and in some places that we're still working on developing an application, we anticipate having a good deal more than that in a single application, up to a dozen or so, which again will just make it easier from a when it comes to either, you know, reimbursing towns for expenses or whatnot. Being able to have them under one application makes things a little easier than if it was, you know, 4 or a dozen separate grants that each need to be tracked individually.
Got it. Caroline, did you get that?
Yes, I did. And so I'm assuming the town's gonna go forward with this process, whether it's 1 or 10 proposed properties in an application. So has the town given any thought to what happens next? So once the town says yes, and they do the application for the interested parties, what would be the next 2 or 3 steps after that? Anything that the individual property owners need to do, or does it just get taken on the responsibility of, I guess, Phil and Matt to go forward? What happens after the town says yes?
Yeah, and I can jump in there. So there's a number of forms that we will send around, including a few that property owners need to complete: a property owner questionnaire, a hazardous materials survey, like I said, signing the statement of voluntary participation, a few other kind of FEMA kind of release forms like that that need to get signed by the property owner. And in addition to that, we will need lister cards for those properties, and which is something we'll work with the town with, and what's called kind of pre-project photos of the structures on those properties, which obviously we'd work with the town to potentially work with property owners where possible to get those. But that's the extent of requirements on the property owner at that stage. And then obviously when a grant is made, the property owner is then involved in anything related to the closing, you know, cooperating with what's needed for a title search and things of those matters. But for right now, it's just those forms that would get sent around.
So just real quickly, you mentioned a new approach to doing the buyout process, which is where Vermont Emergency Management would take over most of the responsibility for management to relieve some of the stress on the individual town government. Does that mean that homeowners work with the town, or would we work with the state?
Yeah, and throughout this, I think, you know, we want lines of communication to be open with both. Obviously, we're dealing with, you know, a lot of property owners across the state, and so we are relying on towns to be that point of contact in a lot of regards, like when it comes to disseminating, you know, forms and things of that nature. But as I understand, and again, this would be a new approach, but if VEM was serving as the grantee, as the implementer of the grant and doing that work, then we would also be taking on some of the roles of coordinating with property owners as it relates to anything implementing the grant, like doing those title searches, arranging for the appraiser to be there, you know, to get the appraisal done, things of that nature. But I think the short answer is, you know, I think we'll have to figure it out as we go along. But the idea in general is lines of communication open multiple ways, which with the town, hopefully, being the kind of nexus of it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Can I just ask one more quick question?
then we're done. One more.
I'm just thinking about further for people that aren't involved in the buyout, an informational meeting for the town, because what this means is there's going to be perpetual care on this green space. We're going to have lost tax revenue from how many houses will be demolished. I'm particularly sensitive to the water situation in the village and the loss of revenue for the water district, because our rates for the water have almost tripled recently, and then we'll lose many users. So my concerns are not just for the people in the buyout, but for us as a community, what that's going to mean. So it's not really a question, it's a request perhaps for a
Good request.
informational meeting. So we all know what's going on, because there are some pretty serious issues coming down.
Yeah.
Especially with the fire district.
I can look into organizing
Thank
something
you.
like that. Absolutely. Thanks, Kate.
Yep.
Okay, Brian, thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate you taking the time out. Obviously, we've got some more work to do on this, but I think this was a good start. Thank you, everybody else, for coming. I hope you got what you needed, and if you didn't, if you have more questions, please come to me, come to Phil, email us, call us. We're here.
So the application.
Yeah, Brian will get that to us. We'll get that to you, and we'll get things rolling on that. Yeah. Right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Brian.
I know,
Thank you,
you-
Kelly.
I know you wanna move on.
Before, the thing that we gotta do to come out of this, and it doesn't have to be tonight, is, and he's going now, but there needs to be an authorized agent somebody needs to be authorized by the select board to be able to move on the environment application to the state. So that's.
Well, it'd kind of be nice for the select to know how many properties we're talking about.
So,
Yeah.
do you know what they are?
See it.
You know what I mean? And before I say yes to something, if there's 100 properties, I'm thinking no.
Right now we've got 4 properties,
There are more people interested.
but I have heard there are more people interested.
Was that more counting the two of us back here?
So we got Taylor's, the big apartment building, the small apartment building, and yours.
Okay, that's 4.
That's 4.
Okay.
And then I haven't heard who else, but I have heard that there are others interested. So.
Well, that takes a good chunk of your little Coventry city, those.
Right. Well, that's my point.
So the two issues for me is, one, we need to, again, we talked about this, get the map, do the overlays and find every affected property in the town. It's not just the village. There's
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
places in the town.
Yeah.
And we need to, as town representatives, communicate effectively and document the communication to any affected property. So it gives people education and gives them the opportunity, because they may not be here tonight, or they may not be watching this or
We
reading.
can do the thing that Kate said, and that would.
We need to get maps.
Yeah.
We haven't done that. We gotta put them on a table. We need to discuss it as a group. So that type of question can get answered, and we can see the potential impact to the town. We have to do that. I don't know why we haven't done that yet, but within a week, that should be done. We should have every single affected property. Secondly, I'm not going to vote, or not going to be very easy to get me to vote for taking over houses, spaces in this village without having a conversation with the water department that they are not going to charge the town forever water rates, because I'm not going to be willing to do that. That is the current status. We're paying on it for this parking lot right here. And we're going to have that conversation, and they're going to have to have that conversation. That's gonna create another ball of problems for them and potentially for the town, but you've got to deal with these issues. You can't just kick the can and hope it's gonna get better, because it's not.
Right.
So the water district is important. They're not gonna wanna do it, and they're gonna have to, or we're gonna have to have a bigger conversation. Because I'm not gonna take on further expense for the town for a green piece for the next 1,000 years.
be cheaper to lift everybody's house 8 feet up.
So Phil, can you do that in the next week?
Versus buyouts, raising people's property up, so you can't get flooded. The guys that place burned down right behind my house, right? And what was that, in 21? That big building right there behind me and his house, that burnt down, exploded at 2, 3 in the morning. And, you know, that guy still has shit out there that he hasn't even moved since that. And if FEMA didn't come by and find one of his little oil buckets laying in the street near his house that he owns, and she knew when it came from him, because I told her, I go, she came in my backyard and said, why does it smell like oil? My oil tank's in the cellar that didn't leak a drop. All that smell is coming from right there, from that building that burnt down right there.
So I'm not sure how we got there.
I'm just
But,
saying that.
You know, we're in a public
That's-
meeting and,
That's part of the whole reason why I don't wanna stay here.
well,
Cause I didn't get effectiveness control out of that guy. Who talks to him about getting rid of his trash, so I don't have to look at it when I walk out my back door, or smell it, for that matter. I mean, you know, the place burnt down, clean it up, buddy, you don't live here. You just work in that building, you don't live there.
so Phil, within a week, can you guys do that? Sit down, get your map overlays, give the select board a list of potential affected properties. Then we'll make a decision on writing a letter or whatever, however we do it. And get all them so that then we know for this process, how many potential properties that we might have. And within, you know, a 60-day period, we might have the first group, we can look at getting into an application process. And then as we discuss, that's why I asked those questions, we can get another group if there is one, but we have to know those answers. And Deb, you're on the water district. Can you relay the message? Can I say from the board, from me?
Yeah.
As a voter on the board, we have to have that conversation. Because I don't imagine that they would want to stand in the way of people being able to take this process through, but it potentially certainly could look like
And
that.
maybe there's some compensation from FEMA for that also.
Probably, you know, with it this week too, so that we can be ready and have those answers for the next meeting if we can.
Oh, hey, I'm sorry. I know I brought that up because he raised his floor when he rebuilt. He raised his floor 36 inches and he still got 2 feet of water in there, so.
Yeah.
Before I go, I just want to say, feel free to contact me anytime. You know, happy to participate, want to be part of the communication. And so anytime, if I can be of any assistance, please don't hesitate to contact me.
Thank you, Carleen. I will do that.
Thank you. Good night.
Moving on.
Yep.
Loose cows on the airport road. Renee?
Like she's not laughing.
They have the Maxwell brand on them.
I don't think they're Holsteins.
So I'm really looking to you guys for some guidance here because I have tried every route and every avenue I know of to come up with some kind of solution for this problem. And the problem needs to be solved by the owners of the animals, but they're doing nothing. They're doing absolutely nothing. I have now 6 property owners who have had Ethan, are you Ethan?
Yep.
Ethan. 6 property owners around in the general area of this place. It's 5707 Airport Road. It's owned by Audrey Marsh and Thomas Pizzaio. And the cows are loose daily, every single day. I know you said you haven't seen them, but
I haven't seen them, but I've seen the small one out last week.
yeah, the lady up on the hill next to Guys saw them
Yeah,
out today.
yeah.
Does the town, do we have a constable? I don't live in Cottage.
Yes,
so I
we
don't
do,
know.
we have 2.
Yeah, you do.
We have a first and a second.
Okay. I don't know, I don't think I can write a ticket, a municipal ticket based on a state statute. I think I can only write tickets based on the dog ordinance, because I'm just the dog control officer. So I don't know if the constables, your guys constables write tickets?
I'm not sure if they even have the authority
What would it be for?
for the animals being loose. Yeah.
And
They're
damaging
like-
property.
There's a
Yeah.
state
They've been
statute that,
damaging my property for the past, well, 2 years.
So I'll give these to you guys, these are the only two, I'll give these to you. That's- They're the only two statutes that apply to this particular situation. Because the animals are not on public property, they're on private property. Emily Eakins had damage to apple trees that he's planting, Dale Bennett has had cows walked across brand new septic. Pipes popping up out of the ground,
Damaged some of his trees.
some of his trees, Geislers have had a lot of their landscaping destroyed. The cows are constantly up in their property, up in the woods, on their trails. And then, there's another lady that lives, Heather, lives beside Geisler's, she's got horses. She hasn't really had any major problems, but she sees them the most because they're usually right below her place.
Yeah, we hay the field and they've eaten that. We've fed them all summer.
Yeah,
Yeah. On that.
so I've got like probably 15 to 20 hours of time into this. I was working with a fishing game. We were trying to go approach it with a animal cruelty angle. The animals are not at a point where it's a cruelty case yet. It could be, he's gotten hay in there, some more hay. So I tried that with fishing game. We went in, they let us in, we did an investigation. And there's not enough there yet to pursue cruelty charges. I got them to agree that if I could find a farmer who was willing to take some of their cows, that they would exchange for hay for the winter to supply them with the rest for the hay, because there's nothing there for them to eat. That's why they're loose. I mean, they've got 4 acres of land and it's all swamp and cedar trees. There's nothing there for them to eat.
Nothing. They are actually they were renting Deb Cobb's land next to my land last year. And it got to the point where Deb had to call them every day to have them come and feed and water them. They're going days without water, days without food. They're only eating grass, they're not eating grain, they're eating crap hay.
Yeah.
And then when they do break loose, I just planted over 80 apple trees on my property. I'm starting an orchard, in the next 7 or 8 years, they're gonna be ready. I can't have cows destroying them. I spend countless hours, money. I put a pond on the property to water those trees. If the trees die, I'm out. Close to 15,000-20,000. With everything.
how many cows are there?
There's only been about,
There were 15.
yeah,
They had a cow that killed a calf and injured another, so they killed 3 of them, so now they're down to 12. I had a farmer in Charleston who was willing to take half the herd, give them like 50 round bales to feed the 6. And they beat around the bush and flaked out, and then the farmer said, I don't wanna deal with it. So I lost out on that opportunity, and I had another farmer in Westmore who has Highlanders, these are Scottish Highlanders, by the way. That was willing to take some and pay them for them, but then when he found out they're all bulls, he was not interested. So out of the 12 animals they have, 7 of them are full-grown bulls. That's why I printed out that ordinance on the bulls, the statutes on the bulls. So I don't know if we could write a ticket per bull. Cause there's at least 6 of them that get out daily.
good luck getting your money out of
Yeah,
Right, I mean,
Well, it's a ticket, it would be
Yeah,
a lot, it would be a ticket, not just a civil, like taking them to small claims court.
them. Yeah,
So on like for Ethan, there's nothing I can do for him because it all becomes civil. So he has to go to small claims court to try to recoup any costs of damages that these cows have caused.
Can I make
Yeah.
a suggestion? Because I had a similar situation happen at another property of mine. And these people's homeowners insurance.
I guarantee these people don't have homeowners
Yeah,
insurance.
You know,
they
Okay.
have this. It should be out of there.
Guaranteed.
throw a couple $1,000 into this.
because they can make a claim. If they have homeowners, you can make a claim against them.
I'm not to the point where I'm thinking last resort, they're on my property, but I can't.
You shoot them if
We so the game warden and I, Jake Johnson is the game warden who's been working on this case.
Great question. Can you shoot it?
Well, that's
Well, I
where,
mean, if they're doing
There's-
$10,000 worth of damage, I mean.
so there's.
It's not up there yet, but if they break my fence and destroy all my trees, hell, that's gonna be.
I mean, you did all the time you put in, I mean.
So there's nothing, Jake and I researched it, there's nothing in any of the statutes or anything in the state of Vermont that say you can't.
and there's nothing that says you can. There is a, in the statutes, there is something written in there that you can shoot your neighbor's dog that comes on your property and is vicious or harms people, animals, livestock. There's absolutely nothing on the books. We researched it for hours and there's nothing that says you can't.
The town is not in any way
Are they gonna come after
talking
you?
about shooting down
Yeah,
Matthew.
Why don't you wrestle that bull down and talk to them?
Yeah, good luck.
So we had a sheriff that came in this week, so I was just sort of asking him some questions actually last week. He has stated that the sheriff's department would be more than happy to go up there and actually just discuss this with the property owner. We do have a first constable and a second constable. I'll have to double check, but I'm almost positive that our constables are not able to write civil tickets because they have not had that specific authority, I'm gonna say like bestowed on them.
Right.
Like back when we had Jesse Testu, who was sheriff, he would have been able to go ahead and issue civil tickets because he already has gone through that training of a police officer in order that gives him that qualifications to do that.
So just so you guys know, you don't need to go through any specific training. You need to apply to the state for an officer number. I have an officer number.
Okay,
I didn't go, the only training I went to was actually a town officer training in Montpelier, probably like 7 or 8 years ago. And the only training really involved in that was they had a cop there who showed us how to write the tickets.
perfect.
So I don't think there's any training. I think you just have to apply for an officer number.
Okay,
So we have a contract with the Orleans County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah.
But, so this is what's gonna happen though, is the fish and game officers are in charge of all animal issues now. And the fish and game officers already been there, so I don't know if there's anything more that the sheriff's department
They
can
could
do.
write
other
the
than go
ticket,
talk to
They
these
can write the
people.
ticket.
They can write the
Cows are in charge?
Fish and game,
Fish and Game is for charge of cows?
they're in charge of any animal issues, so if animal control officers have issues, the fish and game are our go-to. So the fish and game officer's already been there, read them the riot act. Could he write them a ticket? He could write them a ticket for that, for the
Was Jim Cobb
$110.
the most animals, in this area?
What's that?
Jim Cobb is, I mean, I've seen his property and I know he's got a lot of different animals on his property. Was that Jim Cobb, that same Jim Cobb we're talking about?
No.
The thing
Well,
is,
what we do is just gonna move on to this.
Well, and that's
that's probably, that would need to be removed.
I mean,
That's my, that's, I'm just point, but I need to be removed.
Are they
Discuss
Angus?
it.
no,
And then we can discuss it.
but there's nothing, there's
I
no,
mean, it's not very
there's nothing
small.
to on anywhere that says,
Sheriff.
the only way we can remove those cows is if we've approved neglect of use.
Right.
Which is cool.
You would think you should be able to
So
enforce it.
if it's on someone else's property.
Oh, well,
I mean,
if,
that's the answer. It's not a town issue.
if someone, so here's the deal, I told the other neighbors, if somebody wants to round them up,
No.
and we can get a truck and a trailer out there,
That's what I'm saying.
I'm willing to, you know, go out there and load them up while they're on his property. That's the only way, for right now, that I can see.
So let's break it down to what's actually possible.
Not a lot, unfortunately.
There's penalties that are in state statute,
Mhm.
which the game warden
Game warden or a law enforcement officer could write a ticket.
should,
Yep,
and it's probably per offense.
and I have hundreds of photos.
So
Hundreds
do it.
more, and more than
So let's, how do you wanna do that? Do you want it to go with the contacts that you already have with the Fish and Game?
I can contact Jake and see if he's willing to go out and write tickets based on these.
So why wouldn't he have already done that?
I think he was still, when we went out there, we were hoping to get a cruelty case. And I don't think we didn't do a whole lot of research on this piece of it.
Yeah.
Until after, because we thought we were gonna be able to get
Okay,
more, we thought more was gonna be able to happen than what.
so can we just take some steps back? Have
Okay.
you get
Yeah.
hold of him again,
Yeah.
more educated up? We've had a meeting, we've looked at what the town does or doesn't have
Mhm.
for reality.
Yeah.
And the answer is, he's gotta write a ticket. If he doesn't do that, tell us why he doesn't wanna do that. And we'll discuss it with the sheriff's department
Right,
on the record.
right,
That's what we should do.
Yeah.
Second piece is back to the neighbors. You guys gotta sue
Well, and that's the thing, we gotta get everyone involved, all the neighbors together and sue them, and the problem is, these people aren't gonna pay, they,
them. Yeah, but you're
There's still-
looking what we've got in front of us, right? As this is the
you guys all
reality.
get together.
You don't have to all get
Yeah.
together. You just have to, if they're damaging your property, sue them.
yeah, and that's, at the point, I'm about ready to do something. Just because I can't have them destroying my orchard.
I would sue them if it were me.
Yeah.
So there's no other way for us to deal with it.
Okay,
It's just one of those issues, unless somebody knows something I don't. Those are the two issues we have.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna pay it more likely than not, but that takes consequence too. So you
Yeah.
have to start the consequence trail in order to gain compliance, change behavior through consequence.
yeah, because the thing is,
It's the only thing we have.
the problem is I can go ahead and sue them all I want. They gotta get those cows removed, those cows need to be gone, because they're just gonna continue to happen, it's just gonna, we're just gonna continue to.
I'm not disagreeing with you, I agree, but how you're gonna get
There's
there,
no legal,
Right, we gotta figure something out,
yeah,
we gotta
so
figure out how to get them out.
our action
Well,
step is we go back to the Fish and Game, we ask them, would you consider doing this? Because we believe that it's what the statute says you should do.
Right.
See what he says about that. If there's a greater conversation, ask him to come here to the meeting. And if that's not something that's happening, then we'll go through the sheriff's department. And then if they don't do it, we don't control law enforcement.
Right.
Then it sort of kind of goes back to the conversation of the neighbors. If they're destroying your property, the only recourse you have is to sue.
Right.
Or
That's your
give them
recourse.
20 round bales of hay in exchange for 10 of the cows
Well,
and leave him one bull.
I don't wanna eat them, that's the problem,
I don't
I'm
blame
about
you.
ready to drop them, I'm
Yeah.
gonna destroy my property.
I hear you. It's frustrating, but I mean, that's,
And that's another thing, it's like, I told Renee, I said, I'm about ready to shoot them, if they own my property, I'm shooting them, but, yeah, I wanna get sued for shooting their cows. 'cause-
no shooting.
Just cause I know there's the stipulations with cattle and all that, and
I wouldn't shoot. Cause then you're gonna be the defendant.
right, exactly, that's my issue.
So
You'll see some action happen once you do that.
you start giving them tickets.
honestly, I'm honestly, after dealing with these people, I've been to their house like probably a dozen times in the last month.
There should be more people going
And
in.
I don't know that if the animal, those cows started just dropping and disappearing, that they would even really notice. Or
They wouldn't even care. The problem is that they've had people offering money for these cows. And nope, I think when they first started, when I first moved in almost 5 years ago, I think they had 6 cows. 6 cows, and they just keep reproducing. And they won't give them up. Because they think they're Wagyu cows, they think they can get $10,000 a cow.
Well,
No.
we're not gonna solve anything other than
So, but as long as I know what I gotta do now,
Renee's on it.
Okay.
yeah, I appreciate it.
Andrew Gordon.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Keep communicating
Yeah.
with her.
Okay, thanks Ethan, thank you. I'm gonna get out of here.
Thank you.
Keep us updated.
Thanks.
Keep us
Alright,
updated.
thanks guys. I'll
Thank
keep
you.
updated, I'll let
Yeah.
you know. I'm actually- The game warden's out on paternity leave right now, so I will get a hold of it at Sheriff's Department as well.
Okay.
So they can see if
Yeah, Deb?
they have something different.
Next, we have the fence viewer vacancy.
Question.
Thank you, Renee.
Now, I know Orly's probably not gonna like this word.
Does he like anywhere?
But based on this, because of what some other towns have and still, it's called an ordinance for the livestock. Is that something that we should really start looking at?
I can
For
tell you
having
that,
these animals
I
out
can
there?
tell you that Charleston has put it in theirs. So if you
I
want
mean,
to.
it's not gonna be too.
Careful what you ask for, farmers.
Tonight, but I think it is something definitely that you folks should be looking at, because with people taking on animals, whether it's chickens, whether it's pigs, whether it's cows, whether it's horses, whether it's whatever. That's when I do at large, that's not covered. An ordinance will give you more power to what you can do.
And it is an issue, I mean, I get calls every single day, people's chickens are in my yard, cracking in my yard. the pigs are loose, just a little bit.
How much better we are with Lordians when we already have.
You have a
statute like that.
state statute.
But I can't write a ticket against a state statute.
You cannot.
I know that,
I
but
can on
the game warden can, and so I would like to ask the game warden, why didn't you do that? Why are you not doing that? Is it? What, let him answer that.
You're
way.
fishing without a license, you
Yeah,
would take
you'd
it.
have a
Right.
ticket 5 minutes later.
Well, so fishing game are called in to help with animal issues like animal cruelty, that kind of thing. As far as enforcing the state statutes, I will check. It may have to be sheriff's department or state police.
Yeah, it's fine.
But I can tell you that every time I call the sheriff's department and the state police for help on animal issues, basically get laughed at.
You give me a call and let me know.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, it's a matter that we.
They call me, I don't call them, they call me because they don't want to deal with it.
Well, you call them on this one and get them going on us to us, and we will take care of that with you.
Yeah, you tell the select board wants, I think we're speaking as a
Yeah.
group, we want this
Yeah.
issue handled.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, discussion.
Thank you.
Okey-dokey. Fence viewer vacancy.
I forgot about that.
We had 2 fence viewers. Stuart Maxwell has verbally resigned his position as fence viewer. He spends 4 months out of his year in Florida and has no interest in serving as a fence viewer this day or any day going forward. Yes. That leaves us with just Israel.
So, what does the fence viewer do?
They look at fences on people's properties according to our.
Well, technically, like for this livestock issue, the town could go ahead and send its fence viewers over to that property and mandate that, okay, you do not have a fence for
Download
these
it.
cows.
Mhm.
You need to go ahead and install a fence by this specific date.
And what happens if they don't?
Then if they don't, then they can go ahead and there's some additional steps and those fence viewers can go ahead and install. But that was one piece of information that I acquired in regards to this cow issue.
So we should accept that.
Yeah, you can accept his verbal. I'll get you, he'll write something up. You want him to.
So I mean, just as a matter of business, right? Because right now,
He'll
he's,
write something.
right now, he's an official, he's the official.
Right,
one
but
of the
he's
officials.
given me his verbal
Yeah.
resignation.
We'll just accept that.
I accept it, yeah.
So I would, yeah, I guess we probably should do that.
So is there,
You want a motion on it?
Yeah.
I would motion that we accept the verbal resignation of Mr. Maxwell as the fence viewer.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
was there another vacancy open prior? Because I think there's 3. It's supposed to be-
Yes, there was only 2, so now there's 1.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be 3. But that's, you guys can. worry about that.
Town meetings coming.
Well,
No, that's the point, it is.
we should probably appoint some in there. Put it on the next
Okay.
meeting
Next
and all.
agenda,
I can probably drop one up
scare
here.
up a couple people.
Go find them.
Thinking you have him sitting right here, that possibly.
It looks like she might want another
Me?
job. She's so
I'm
good
a
at.
little Ethan.
Oh, I was
You
just
did,
saying,
yeah.
I have no interest in them.
All right,
Appoint-
He's been really
I'm
on their
gonna stop
time.
talking even, so I'll ask him.
Crazy.
we're gonna skip this Cleveland Meeting House stuff. I can talk about that some other time. Recap of the NECO meeting, which happened at the end of October. That's Northeast Kingdom Organizing. They came in and set up a meeting for residents of the town of Coventry to share their experiences with the flood over the summer, what went right and what went wrong. I was there. Scott Morley was there. Scott, you wanna?
Was it well
Share with the
attended or
group.
pretty quiet?
It wasn't all that well attended. There may have been a dozen people there or so.
And 8 from the organization and 4 residents or?
No, there was 8, 10. residents, probably, I'd
Yeah, I
say.
mean, the folks, the neighbors over
Yeah,
here,
there was
a
8, 10,
couple people from the
8, 10, 12
village.
people, you and I,
Yeah.
it was 8, 10, 12, probably.
That was open for others too, not just the town, right?
Yeah, anybody could go.
Yeah, well, yes, I think Catherine Sims was there.
Catherine Sims was there, yeah.
Yeah, and a couple other state officials.
Very representative. We heard from the folks that were there, that they didn't think we did a very good job. They didn't think that we communicated well. They didn't think that we responded as well as we should have or could have. They still feel that way. There's some that have never heard from us. They feel they should. They talked about some ideas for potentially mitigating future flooding, or to ideas around helping people out. They talked about forming a committee, a flood committee. That about sums it up.
Mhm.
It wasn't real positive, other than if you took something that you heard the needs of somebody else, that's positive. But there was nothing positive they had to say about our response. And I agreed with a lot of it, frankly. I agreed with the fact that we didn't communicate as well as we should. I agreed that we should have had emergency shelters open differently than we did. I agreed that we should have better thoughtful forward planning so that we're not reactionary as much as we would be prepared to say, here's the event, I know my place, I know my space, I'm gonna get there and I'm gonna do these 12 things. That's sort of how best critical management is managed. It's not thinking on your feet. There's a time for that, but if you're taking care of all those preparatory pieces, it leaves a lot less scrutiny for your thinking. So I think we really need to evaluate that as a town. Some of the bigger things that we may have heard then, or I may have heard elsewhere, but they connect, Matt, was I think we should run down the potential with the state for an emergency interstate access point at the end of Hawes Road. I know that is possible, even though nobody in the state will really want to. But I think there may be a way for us, because that area gets just cut off.
Right.
Sometimes for days. It was what, 2-3 days. This time you were down there with a tractor and I was swimming, but.
You have the same issue with the Belsky and this year, right?
Yeah, although you can kind of get back and forth between those spots, yeah. So I think that's one thing that we should do some reach out, try to get a contact with the state to see what the steps might look like in order for the town to do that. If you had to get a fire truck in there, it ain't happening. If you had to get an ambulance in there, it ain't happening. If you had an access point with a gate onto the interstate, which some towns do, you could do that. The other one was this river over here. Dredging, we heard a lot about. We probably did miss the boat in following up on that as much as we should have. We should do that.
So that's all part of that ice jam study that we're waiting on getting the grant money for. This section, not just part, it's not just incorporating ice jam, but it's also flooding in general for that.
Yeah, but when we're the same level, when it's going into a level place and there's no flow, it's just gonna go up, right?
I get it. But the way in which we respond to that is always a lot better when we say, here's the contact person in the state, here's the people that we deal with, here's their response now, and here's why, rather than, well, we did dredge it a couple of years ago. Well, then how come you haven't since? And we haven't had a flood since you dredged until just now because it filled in, you know. You can't really respond to those things because they're kind of, you don't know those answers. Nobody really does. But I think, again, systemically, we should be repetitiously finding that state rep who's in charge of that sort of riverbed thing and be asking him, do an annual visit, something for this village for that piece.
Do they feel if it's deeper, it has more force and then it would push the water quicker?
Yeah, that's why,
That's kind of what it is. It's more of a,
more volume,
It's not bad.
especially with the ice. You know, this wasn't an ice event, but the shallower it is, the more the ice gets hung up, and then it's just a quick dam. So you have more of that flow through, and if you do look at it, since Dave did it last,
It filled in on this last
it
storm.
is filled in.
This last storm filled in. Did you ever reach out to that?
It has.
There was the, can't remember what it was, I have to look it up, but there was
so
another
we need to drag it.
state entity to reach out for.
Who's responsible? The town or the state?
For dredging,
For,
They don't care if we fly.
because I called about the dredging and they said no,
We always have to be the proactive,
but I don't. maybe
get them
that was-
here,
yeah.
push on them, because they, everything goes against being in a river. And the third thing that I got from it was people talk about building a wall
Yeah, that's gonna be worse.
Mhm.
from
Yeah,
that house,
Right.
the old mill.
Yeah.
On this side by Lady Bird Park to
Yeah,
the bridge, and just shoot everything and don't let anything up over the cement wall.
Oh, and it's gonna come across the other side and the lower part fills in, like closer to Newport, it starts filling up and it comes back. So it's,
That's what they,
Yeah.
that's what we got. So probably when we're talking to that guy in the state, we say, hey, what about this? And let him answer that question.
Well, it might be better for the town to somehow get $2 or $3 or $4 million worth of, or $10 million worth of funding to fix this. Than to have FEMA and end up with all this green space and no taxpayers and no residents.
There you go.
that's how they go about it, especially in this type of thing, is you
Yep.
turn it into green space because you're not gonna stop water.
Right.
And that's where these buyout programs are coming.
I did good,
you
right?
did great.
Not about-
So these folks from Northeastern Organizing have reserved the community center for a follow-up meeting in December.
December now.
So they'll be back and they will advertise and
So maybe by then, hopefully we can maybe get some information.
Yeah.
So we should have
Yeah.
the state come out here and look at this.
Yeah.
We should definitely make those contacts and try to get somebody on site, initiate a conversation with regards to accessing point at the, just sort of like start those things, start a
Yeah.
couple files on them and just start moving them forward.
all right, that takes us to other business. Town truck for road crew. Scott Breyer.
Well, it's the same.
Yeah, this is from last meeting, so you guys asked me to put this back on
A
again.
little meeting before you needed time to think about it. I got some numbers on a truck for the road crew to inspect roads and use for, basically inspecting roads, running errands, picking up supplies instead of using the F600, which is that truck's probably gonna be $150,000 to $175,000 to replace next time. Whereas if we used it strictly just for work, we'd probably be able to keep it for 2 or 3 extra years. And the town truck is gonna burn, we got them just a regular, 150 truck, it's gonna burn a third or maybe half the fuel. So the savings in the fuel and the savings in the wear and tear, I think the expense of the truck would be minimal to the town. I think we had gotten 2 estimates, I think. The GMC from Delariere that was slightly used seemed to make more sense. I think it was in a low $50,000 range. I think that's what we're looking at. If you guys think we should do it or if not do it, I know, if Nate is out and about and needs to come talk to one of us, he's either using his own truck or he's using the F600,
F600, yeah.
which it definitely does not get more than 7 miles to the gallon.
No, it's, yeah.
I think it's a no-brainer what you say. I believe that too. I'm just bucking the process because of the budgets. That's not in our budget. We don't have the money to spend. We'd have to use special funds. And I'm against that. So is there a way for us to do both? Is there a way for us to buy the truck and bring those other expenses down and it offsets each other in our current budget? Is there a way for us to buy it on loan so that we're not getting 50,000 out? And the offset of those other expenses then pays that until we get to town meeting and approval to expend the rest of the loan?
It's very possible to do it that way. Get a loan for the truck. The difference in the fuel savings would probably make about half of the payment.
Yeah. And we were, we had a $60,000 overage last year, right?
Approximately.
It's gonna be higher too, because now you have 3 guys, 3 salaries, 3 benefits, everything that's being paid out, and so far expenses this year have been a little bit higher as far as maintenance and repairs on some of this stuff.
What was our percentage increase on our highway?
Can determine that, but I don't have that. I think they're gonna be higher this year.
I think we'd be better off to buy the truck out of special reserves, and the savings that we save would help offset the increase in the current budget that we have.
So I wish Dave was here. He and I argued this last time, right, around the money left over from last year's budget.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. And so the money that we had money left over in both budgets last year. At the conclusion of the fiscal year, which was around $60,000.
Around, yeah,
That would pay for your truck.
correct.
That's not new money. That's not special funds money. That's money that the select board does have at its disposal because it's already been budgeted.
What are the statutes on, I agree with you, what are the statutes on?
Well, I'm sure you've done
From
research.
one fiscal year to the other,
Just that.
can.
Yeah.
But I don't think
I
Dave
don't-
agrees with that, does he?
And
He did.
I've heard that from another place too, that I didn't think you could move fiscal year budget excess.
Well, he's
You told me
feeling
more
every
on
year
that.
at town meeting, he's addressing that situation by re-voting any excess and all excess.
Right, so we
Yeah,
can
we
vote on
do the same thing with
It's
every year.
It's a blanket period and it's just.
That's
going
how he
back.
does it.
Right,
That's
But
why.
first of all,
right,
it's our budget. It's not the treasurer's budget.
right.
So we have to know these things and we have to set the rules and make the decisions on that stuff. You can't take. Well, I don't want to rehash that.
Right. I kind of, I know,
We don't have time for that tonight, Scott.
So I had the discussion about that with the auditor because of what Dave said, and the auditor and I agreed.
You can move excess.
You're not moving
You're not
anything.
moving anything, you can use it.
It's been allocated to town expenses through proper voting through town meeting to the select board for expenses.
you need to spend it.
You need to spend it. If you choose not to spend it, if we choose, many towns, most all towns are not like us. If they have $10,000 left over, they put that in a special reserve fund. That's what we did 30 years ago, how we get into this problem, because we just kept growing it out. They would put that into special funds, most all towns do, and then reallocate, revote for that purpose. But statutory guidance is not that. Statutory guidance is what I'm saying, which is you've already been authorized to expend that money.
It's just a working on how that shows up into the budget.
Right. So. Where's the auditor at? Has he been physically in the building in the last week or two?
No,
No, then all, yeah.
all through email.
Are they going to have to come back physically?
I don't know. They didn't mention anything about it to me, but I mean, I gave them everything they asked for when they asked for it.
So. When do you guys want to call him and talk through that, so he's not hearing it just from me, and maybe you can say it a different way?
Talk to Dave or to the
To
auditor?
the auditor.
I'll talk to him.
And so the basic question is, we had
A surplus
a
left over.
surplus in, make sure you're talking about in both areas, you should get the numbers.
Yeah, it was 10,000, basically 9 or 10,000 in.
And what are the rules, statutory guidance rules on us utilizing that money? What are we allowed or not allowed to do? And then, discuss it. I never discuss it on spending it in any such way, but you would obviously say we're thinking about buying a truck.
I'll tell him.
Yeah, and just, see what the paperwork documentary
I
rules
can talk to
are.
him tomorrow. We have a meeting Thursday or Friday for,
Friday's a holiday.
every day's a holiday for you. But, ambulance will, throw that on you too. I'll go to small.
We're doing it, call him tomorrow.
I'll call him,
Rick.
send me an email with his.
Yep.
stuff.
I will.
Okay.
Okay, roadside mower. Got Briar again.
Well, this is nothing gonna cost, it's not gonna cost us any money right now. This is just, to think about putting in the road budget going forward for next July for 2 weeks rental, and then again, and I think September, whatever Nate had said, 2 weeks rental, and, try it out. The tractor, I think, is unsafe, it's too big, the mower's too big, it's just not the right piece of equipment for doing this, the roads. It breaks, and it's, I think we should try something different.
How much was that?
It's gonna be, I'm thinking it was, we had the quote here, but I think it was gonna be about $18,000 for the 4 weeks with transport back and forth. I think we're gonna need it for 5 weeks probably.
So I know it was mentioned last one,
It was like 3,500 each time plus pickup, wasn't it like $4,000, 16,000 and change?
Yep. 16,000 and change.
I know it was mentioned last time, we was trying to keep our guys busy, but have you looked at what the cost would be to hire someone to come and do that?
You're not gonna get anyone to come mow the sides of your road for $16,000, I don't imagine.
I don't know, it's just a question to know.
Jeremy at Casella couldn't get anyone even to mow inside their facility, cause he asked me if he could pay the town to mow inside. Like, no, we can't even do our own, no. So,
I know the town of Morgan pays $8,500
twice,
roadside mower once a year.
so twice a year would be 17,000.
We do it once a year.
Okay, but the town of Morgan, how miles per road mowed?
Who's
I
that?
think they're bigger than what we are.
Is that Geyer?
What's that?
Who does that,
That's
guys?
what I just think of hire.
Yeah,
I'd just be curious, I know it doesn't matter for me, but it's just kind of a,
It's all about having enough work for the 3 guys that we have, that we need to have.
I guess that brings up the question on. Is there enough work for 3 guys? Do we need to be paying 3 salaries?
Well, the way we go through our help, and when one's not here, you need.
You are hard on
You
it.
need to have at least 2. You need
I
3.
agree with you, we've been at 2.
So that's just a budget issue.
Yeah,
All right,
let's talk about it.
credit card limit. Scott Briar.
So, $3,000 is hardly buy a hamburger on the credit card, so I think
Yeah, and it's only 25, it's not even
25.
3,000, it's 2,500.
And I think Matt agrees with me. I think we should have the buying power on the credit card for $10,000.
I don't know if I do 10.
What's the
What's it
difference?
used for?
Absolutely. No, because the credit card is the safest way to pay for anything. You can do a chargeback. You know, if the charge is fraudulent, the town's gonna get their money back. And the only people who have access to the card are, yeah, David and Matt. It's like, they didn't give me the card.
Right. You
don't have the card.
You'd have two
You wouldn't
people to
use
play.
it anyway, but,
You
I
never
use my
catch
own.
me, but
yeah.
It is a pain when you try to buy something and then
It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes I think that's so we have a policy where the road foreman can spend $5,000 without even asking us, I believe.
I think it's more than that.
Maybe it's
I
7.
think it's anything less than 10.
So maybe, that's some of those purchases you might want to put on the credit card. You get 30 days extra to pay for them. You're always gonna get a receipt when you get a credit card.
It depends if you've got 30 days. If you buy it like 2 days before your cycle statement.
Yeah.
Your statement cycle ends and you only have 2 days and not 30 days.
Or we can buy the only reason I was thinking this is because they need a tamper.
Right. And we
And
can do
we
it.
can buy it locally and
Yeah.
pay $500 more for the tamper, or we can buy on a credit card.
So
or
why don't we put the same limit as the limit of spending?
of the road crew spending limit.
Yeah, it's not a road crew limit, it's anybody.
Well, isn't there-
And it's,
Is it the emergency? It's 5,000?
yeah,
I think it's 5,000.
5,000 and a lower amount for the other two.
What if we needed it quickly though? Say we had an emergency. The bank's closed.
So why don't we just find a number, put it in the policy and make the card match?
Mhm.
You have a credit card policy and you have a spending policy, whatever it's called,
Sure do.
Purchasing.
purchasing policy. So
Yep.
the purchasing policy has an amount of money in there. So if you're putting a credit card limit above that,
No,
you're breaking your own policy.
yeah, but it could be per instance. What if,
Just make them the same.
no, but what if the road foreman decided he needed to go spend $5,000 and we paid on a credit card tomorrow, we bought this tamper. And then we have a disaster here and we need to get $5,000 worth of emergency supplies. The card's maxed out.
Well, it
On
depends
the emergency, you can't use emergency.
where the supplies would have to
The
go.
director and coordinator have 2,000, the other one.
But I mean, I don't understand why, I would think this is not even an issue, really, honestly. I mean, I don't care if you don't have a dollar, why even have a credit card if you can't use it? This is,
Oh, it is used.
I think.
but it's ridiculous not to have the 20,000, it's ridiculous.
What?
It needs to match the policy, the purchasing policy.
Right.
Emergency policy isn't anything, because it's the emergency management director and coordinator have up to 2,000, the other two are
Right.
full discretion to whatever the heck they have.
Yeah, but we don't have any, we can't buy nothing, the card doesn't work.
So he's saying double the amount of what the purchasing policy says, because you could have one $5,000 spent here, and then an emergency comes up and you need another 5,000, that's what he's saying. That's what I do.
So I mean, it hasn't happened in the history of the
No.
town. But I guess there's no downfall, though. I think there should be some semblance of them being married on documents. So,
I think.
but I don't care what the number is, because if Deb goes out and spends $9,900 on
I don't have the card.
whatever, if Matt goes out and spends $9,900 on, a new car for him,
Thanks, Robin.
then that's kind of a criminal act. He's stealing from the town, so it's
Documented.
Yeah.
He's gotta go to jail.
Yeah.
It's not like, well, Matt.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, do you care one way or the other if we put it to
I
$100,000?
don't care. I just like you to make a decision.
So why don't we just marry those two up? Is there any reason for us not to do that?
I'd have to look, but I don't believe there would be any reason.
And right now it's 10?
so.
And that's what you're asking.
I'm thinking that's what it should be.
So if we're already at 10. Make it so.
Okay.
And if it's not at 10, we should
Do you want?
put the policy
do a
on the
motion
table
on
at the
that?
next meeting and do it all at the same time.
If it's at 10, we're gonna vote to raise the credit card to 10. If it's not at 10, we're not gonna do anything and we're gonna review the policy.
Right?
So we don't need a motion?
I don't,
Yeah, motion that, right?
A motion that we raise the limit on the town's credit card to $10,000 to match the spending policy. If the spending policy is below $10,000, we're gonna do nothing at this time, except to review the policy at our next meeting.
Okay.
Thanks. All those
Very
in
good.
favor?
Aye.
Deb, what did you, that document you need signed?
That was tough.
Well, that's clean business.
Do you need to motion that?
No,
No, just sign it?
just sign it.
Perfect.
I do got 3 other things though.
No,
Yes.
absolutely not.
Shut her down, man.
We gotta get out of here.
No, but this
That clock's an hour fast. That's an hour fast.
It's not.
It's
I
only
gotta,
7.
it's 7:02.
No, because this is stuff that
You know, it's only
needs to be
summer.
on the next
I'm
agenda.
with you always,
I am
guys.
too.
He's mean.
So we should have,
That call.
we should, that's called the grand list, no appeal or suit pending. Yeah,
And this is before us because
this is before us because Casella's done. This is required
The
every
litigation.
single year to be in my grand list book, but when you have a pending suit, you cannot sign this. It's done, so now this needs to be signed and be put into my grand list,
So what line do you want me to sign on?
whichever one of those. Yeah. But on the agenda, we should have other items, other business. And then for that one, we need the personnel policy, still needs to come before here because we've got changes we need to make.
Okay,
We have the boilers, 3 boilers that we need to discuss that needs to be swapped
yeah,
out.
I know, we put that off because we didn't.
And also for the Coventry Village School, because they are absentee ballots, you folks as a board needs to go ahead and make a motion to go ahead and allow that their ballots be mailed out to all the voters. Per state statute, you guys governance that, so you need to make that motion.
what if we don't?
We'll smack you.
No, we don't.
Then if
that-
you don't,
is that the mail, automatically mail out to them no matter a question, or they have to, or give
Yeah,
them permission to?
They voted to go full Australian ballot last year.
yeah, no, they're all.
No,
voted
that-
out,
that
but
was-
they
that
cannot
was-
mail it out
That
without
was
their permission.
reversed, wasn't it?
So we don't have to do that.
No, you do. They cannot mail it out to all registered voters.
Right.
Unless you folks make that determination.
That's what I said.
Okay,
We don't have to do that.
We couldn't go back.
So when do they have to make that decision by?
ASAP.
We could say no. I'm just saying.
Your cost is not your cost, so it's not costing you anything as the town. This is all their cost.
So is that to, if somebody requests an absentee ballot
No,
to mail it
it's-
out, that's
they're
to
mailing it.
mail it out
Oh.
no matter what?
They mail them all.
Can we put
If
a
they
flyer
don't,
in
if
there?
they don't vote on it, they can still request one.
Danger.
Yeah.
That is correct, but
That's
then
true.
they have to request.
Did you hear that?
They want to mail it out to every single voter. And
They
you
want-
cannot,
yes, they want to
you
mail
cannot make that.
If you say no and they request one, they can mail it out, but that's what that vote is, mail it out.
And again, that's all expense on their end. not
Say
the
that
town.
again.
So if they don't mail it out,
If you guys say
people have to,
no,
then they're only gonna get the votes from the people who come to the meeting.
Right.
Yes,
or request an absentee ballot.
yes.
Right, like it's been done for the last 100 years.
So
Yeah,
they're
but
only
no,
gonna
you're
get,
not gonna have a spot on town meeting day.
they're
this
only
year.
gonna get a third of the votes.
But they're gonna
Because
have-
they can only get a
everything is
third of the
absentee
votes.
ballot.
Yes, but
They're
they're
gonna
gonna
get a
have,
third of the real votes.
they're gonna have,
The other people will probably just.
It's gonna be
Yeah, so
open
I don't
all
know,
day
they're gonna
voting.
get a lot of no's.
Yeah.
Right.
For the working people, it's hard to.
right, no, I get it, I.
So town meeting is just town.
It's not, there's not gonna be any school portion of the meeting anymore. That's-
What's
For the first time,
Yes.
Yeah. that
for the first time ever.
Because we voted that last town
They-
meeting.
That got voted out last town meeting.
We did.
Yes.
You were there.
Yeah, we almost, we almost voted on Australian ballot, but after people started crying and brought history,
Yeah.
I kind of
Okay.
went to like, oh, maybe we should
Yeah.
have a town meeting, but I still think you
So
get.
town
you
meeting
get-
is-
I'm
you
just,
on the fence.
I'm missing something here. I'm sorry, Matt.
I don't think I think you got it.
No, I don't, because, so at town meeting last year, there was an issue of Australian ballot versus traditional meeting.
Correct.
And the town voted traditional meeting.
Correct.
Correct,
On
but
the
the
town
school
portion, not the school portion.
portion was first. That question came up, everybody approved it without discussion. Then,
Hence my mental problem.
Yes,
Then
because there was no
school vote.
discussion and nobody understood what was
Correct.
happening.
yeah,
Right.
Yes,
then the towns came up and everybody started discussing.
So
and
what?
it couldn't be reversed for the school.
So what we're saying is the majority of the educated people in the room after dialogue made a decision to not do that.
For the
For
town.
the town, not for the school, it's its own separate article,
I understand.
okay.
But they kind of meant for both.
But
It would have been,
because of the steps that we went through the meeting in the beginning, boom, 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 no discussion, it was the same people voting on the same thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yes, right, they voted different.
yeah,
And so with more conversation and more back and forth and more education to it, the consensus was not to do it. So why the school board would now be asking the select board to go against the wish of the vote in the meeting is a bit baffling.
well,
Not really, because as far as the school ballot goes, you don't have the same components what the town has. You've got the moderator, you've got the treasurer, you've got two positions probably for the school board, and then you've got the budget. The budget and any bond votes were always Australian ballot to begin with. So the only new piece that's being added for the school is just election of officers, basically. That's it. They had the decision, do we want to go ahead and try to reverse that? But why reverse it? Because there's really nothing that extravagant to reverse it by. I understand where you're coming from, but now from the school's point, because they are a school, you as a legislative body need to go ahead and state, yes, the school can go ahead and mail the ballot out to all registered voters for what they would like to, in order to try to get as many people to be able to vote, to voice their opinion on all of the articles.
Or we could say no.
Or you can say no.
And we could say, let's let the voters make that decision again and put it to town meeting.
No, you don't put the voters to decision. It's either you guys say yes or you guys say no.
I'm saying no, we could say no to that. And then
But
we
then-
could say, but for the future, we could put it on the town.
well, it'd be the school having to put it back on to change.
They're not gonna change it back. They're just gonna leave that as it is.
The school already had an Australian ballot for the budget.
Yeah.
Right, so now they just want their,
it was,
they want the
already-
people
yeah,
on there too.
it was already Australian
It
ballot.
would be different if it's like the towns and you've got like 25 different articles.
It's confusing, isn't it?
Yes.
This is why
two of you are confusing.
last more than 2 hours, because,
Maxwell's right.
you know.
Well, no, because I
So-
actually put it on the agenda.
I know, but I had, Deb, we just had so much stuff. I know you did, but I
It's
mean,
a- it's a difference
I had enough for
between-
3 agendas if I wanted to do 3
The
agendas.
budget
It's
for
a
the
difference
school
between
was
the
already
registered
Australian
vote, all
ballot.
of the registered voters.
So at town meeting, we weren't voting on the budget of school, it was already done. People were just complaining about it at town meeting, but they weren't voting on
They were voting on the Australian ballot that they did when they came in, but yes.
So,
It's a difference between all the registered voters getting a ballot mailed to them to be able to send in, or they just telling
so
them.
we can't vote on this anyway, because it's not on the agenda.
No,
Right.
this is
You're
just
not voting on
stating that I want like other business to come to the board on this agenda so that I can state those 3 pieces that we need to have on the agenda.
So,
You just follow the protocol.
so you want us to vote next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
And
gonna
you
talk
have
to
some
Brian.
information now.
it.
I will send you the state
Keep
statute
our building.
that states legislative body. I will send you what JP Isabel from
I-
the Secretary of State sent me.
I know what it says, but it doesn't say the select board shall vote yes for this. So
No,
the
it
select
doesn't.
board has to vote on whether or not to approve it. So I gotta think through whether or not I wanna vote for or against it. And I gotta go home and think about that.
No.
And I gotta probably talk to Brian about that. Because it's happening too quick for me.
We got 2 weeks.
I just gotta understand it better.
But I just know.
I gotta get
they need to
educated.
know so we can move ahead.
And we can do that this week. You can
Yeah.
educate me.
Thank
Talk me into it.
So that was it.
Thanks,
Thank
Deb.
you. All right, approval of minutes from October 16th.
I feel like I got hit in the head with a hammer or something.
Oh, yeah.
I make a motion to accept and approve the minutes for the select board meeting of Monday, this October 16th, 2023, as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Very good. Warrants.
Late one.
What's your schedule this week?
This week? Thursday. And then
3 days this week?
And don't forget, next week I'm actually at the NEAC conference.
See?
Are you getting another award?
Actually, you know what? I'm going on the MC board. So you know what? I just graduated this past July. So there's 6 different states and there's 2 representatives from each state and I'm actually going on to that board. So I'll be sworn in at that conference.
How's the cleaning lady?
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How's our cleaning person doing?
No comment.
I've got no comment right now.
Hmm. Culvert. Fine culvert, did you?
We're pretty good.
I would think so. How'd we make out on the crushed gravel?
Gravel, they're crushing up there right now.
Yeah, they got what they needed.
Yep.
Lucky.
Yeah. Very lucky.
Hancock pit? In the Hancock? That getting low?
What?
That getting low?
Was, yeah.
He got the 10,000.
I don't know how many yards they got, but I mean, they were up there for,
Everybody was sweating there when they were calling
well, I
me.
mean, we were bugging them for a while and they're like, well, you know, we gotta do this, we gotta do this, we gotta do this. And Nathan's like, I have to buy some of this. I'm like, no.
So this was on last year's. budget.
Finally they showed up. So it was good.
Was it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
that's
gonna
right.
record it that way.
That's right.
I'm gonna have to talk to them tomorrow.
Card services, those are all these credit cards.
Nice, yeah.
Holy moly. $23,000.
2016.
23, yeah. It was only 19, was it? It was 1932 or something?
Yeah, and it was maxed out. We couldn't go out for dinner.
Good thing.
We couldn't even go, you wait till you wanna go to a seminar, you can't put it on a credit card.
Well, I can't anyhow. I
Can't
have
Gotta take the dump truck.
the dump truck. No mileage reimbursement, you take that dump truck.
So 2016 purchasing policy.
Sorry, Matt.
No, you guys did great. You guys did a good job. This was a law. I knew these things were gonna take a long time and
Yeah.
you guys handled it well.
Nothing, we got nothing accomplished.
Just one of those, we got hit with 3 big things. You know, anytime Deb's in the room, you know,
We like her up there.
yeah, it's better when she's there.
You just go.
If she's in the room, we're in trouble.
Yeah, we don't even hear her. How come this guy was blasting?
Well, we can mute her when she's.
Matt knows how to do
I think it's for Mike.
I make the motion to accept the warrants as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, adjourn us.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
7:16.
So you coming to see me Thursday?
Stop recording.
Gotcha.